Hello, welcome back. It's so good to see you. So today's video is going to be a little different. I will explain why. But today we are going to be eating Taco Bell, which is not my favorite, but I'm doing it for a reason. And we're going to be talking about something very personal to me. And I'll explain why. But I do want to note that, yeah, this is an ASMR video, but it's also kind of not an ASMR video. It is going to be a personal story time and eating, but I'm not going to be all on top of the microphone because it's really not about that for me. But so if you have lunch, let's have lunch together, or dinner or breakfast whenever you're watching this video, and you can hear me talk about something very personal. But again, it's ASMR, but not ASMR. If there's background noise, if somebody starts doing their lawn or a dog starts barking, I'm just going to leave it in. I'm making sure this is recording. I'm just going to leave it in because this is going to be kind of a hard video for me to make. And I don't want to make it twice. So just letting you know that up front. But I hope you enjoy the eating and personal story. So before we get into it, let me show you what we have. I got this drink. I think it's like some new type drink. I don't know. I don't ever eat fast food, and I definitely don't eat Taco Bell, but there is a reason. I got this like cherry breeze thingy. I don't know. It kind of looks like a slushy. Please don't be loud. Oh, it's gonna be loud. Sorry. That's alright. It's sour. It's like a sour cherry type drink. And did you know that you can customize stuff at Taco Bell? What? Okay, so I got some cinnamon twist. Every time I do eat Taco Bell, you always gotta get the cinnamon twist because it's great. I also got a crunchy taco, but it kind of feels soft now. I guess because I had to like do the whole setup. So let me get this stuff out. Now you know. Oh my God, it busted. Oh no! Look at that, it busted. Yikes. Guess I'm gonna have to eat it like a burger or something. I don't eat meat, so I had them give me a crunchy taco with beans instead. So it's got lettuce, cheese, and beans in there. Could be good. And then they had something that I've never seen before, but it's a spicy potato soft taco thing. I have no idea. So that'll be interesting. I don't know. And they gave me fire sauce, which is what I asked for, so I'm going to put fire sauce on there. We'll try it out, see how it goes. Okay, so personal stuff. About a month ago, my family dealt with a loss. My brother-in-law, Sean, passed away very suddenly. It was very shocking and unexpected. Very unexpected. I'm trying to think of how I want to start this out. It was very shocking. Let's just say that. And at first, we thought that he wasn't going to get a service because when somebody dies so out of nowhere, unexpectedly, you don't just have loads of cash to just pay for stuff, you know. I was very upset that he wasn't going to get a service or memorial or something, but that wasn't really my place. But my mom and my aunts and everybody, I think they kind of convinced my sister that it was the right thing to do, and we all put our money together to make things happen. So he did get a memorial service. It was going to be at like one of those funeral type places, but I want to try this on. Oh, gross. We actually ended up having it at my cousin's shop, which is a super cool shop. Super, super cool. This is alright. It's not bad. Very messy though. Oh god, it's like so messy. Actually, that's really good. Let me show you a picture. So, at his service, I don't know how the camera's going because it's like way far away so that you can see the food. But at his service, these were passed out. This is actually a really, really good picture of him. Like, really good. So, I'll definitely be using it as a bookmark. He will join my brother and my grandmother because they have bookmarks and stuff, so I always read with them. That's a really good picture of him. At the funeral service, it was actually quite fun. Like, it was perfect. It was perfect for him. You know, it was fun. And I had told my kids before we went what a funeral service was kind of like. I was like, you're not gonna like it. It's gonna be sad, and you know, but you gotta show respect, and there's probably gonna be pictures and people are gonna tell stories and stuff, but it's just to remember Sean. That did happen, but it was also fun. It was fun, and it was perfect. He would have really liked it. I'm gonna try not to cry in this video, but you know. And at the service, my sister had these little, they were almost like index cards. And she was like, after everybody spoke or whatever, or whoever wanted to speak, I didn't speak because I don't like people looking at me. But she was like, well, if anybody has any special memories of Sean or stories that you want to share, there were these like little index cards. She was like, just write them down, so that we can have them or whatever. And I didn't write anything down. First of all, because I was put on the spot, and yeah, I don't know, I just wasn't in the right space. But second of all, if you know my brother-in-law, there's no way that you can write a Sean experience on a little note card thing. It's just not possible. It's not possible. But it bothered me that I didn't do that, and it's just been like on me. Like, I can't stop thinking about it. And so I decided, you know what, I'm gonna need to make a video for several reasons. One, so that maybe I can get this out and I will stop thinking so much about it and him, you know what I mean? Two, my sister will get her stories if she chooses to watch the video. And three, you get a video. you get a personal story time eating video. I don't know how long this video is going to be. So just know that this is like, oh, it's falling apart. Like I don't think I'm gonna be able to eat the crunchy taco because now it's all like, ugh, no thanks. But I will try this. Taco Bell is not my favorite, but it was Sean's favorite. And they actually had Taco Bell at, like, we all brought food and stuff like that. It was really a celebration. Like, I don't know. And yeah, there was Taco Bell. My mom, she was like, my niece wanted me to bring like a fruit tray because then we were going to have all his favorite foods and stuff. And she was like, she wants you to bring a fruit and a veggie tray. And I was like, fruit and veggie tray? If we're having his favorite food, I need to bring Taco Bell. And she was like, well, she wants you to bring this. So I was like, okay. When I got there was Taco Bell. So. Yes. Oh my god. What is this magic? Uh-oh. I might have to start eating some Taco Bell. This is fantastic. I don't even know what this is. It's like some spicy potato taco? I don't know. Whatever. That's good. Anyway. So. Also, there will be cussing. Not a lot. I'm not going to be excessive about it. But I can't make a video about Sean without saying a few cuss words. I just can't. I can't. So, what can I say about my brother-in-law? What a fucking asshole. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love him. But what a fucking asshole. For real. And if you know Sean, that is actually a term of endearment. He wanted everybody to think that he was an asshole. And he would wear that badge of honor proudly. For real. Like, what a fucking asshole. But I do love him. So, how did I meet Sean? Well, I met him probably when I was about 11 or 12, something like that. My sister, she was gone for a large chunk of my childhood. And then she came back into our lives. And when she came back into our lives, me and my brother would go spend the weekend with her, like every other weekend, kind of like when parents divorce or something and, you know, somebody gets the kids, like every other weekend. It was kind of like that. And we were like, cool, we can do whatever we want, right? Which we did. It was great. I'm sure my mom was like, yes, I get rid of the kids for a whole weekend. That's great. I love it. But I was never really introduced to him because we would go over to my sister's house on the weekends, and she was married to somebody else. And Sean was her first husband's best friend. I know. I'll explain. But when I first met him, there was no introduction. Like, I was 11 or something, and he was, I don't know, 19 or 18 or 19, you know. To me, he wasn't even on my radar. He was just some background character, you know. I do remember one time we were driving, and there was, like, a tornado. There was we could see a tornado coming down the street, and his house was like right, it was kind of away from there, but we needed to get some shelter. And so my sister was like, we gotta go to this guy's house to get out of this storm or whatever, so we just showed up at his house and he let us in. But he was real scary. If you don't know him, he's terrifying. And so to a little kid, scary. Anyway, that's like my first memory of him. He was just always in the background, but I like wasn't paying attention to him, you know. And then, I don't know, a couple years went by. Like, we never really talked or anything like that, you know. And I believe I was 16, and I used to go to my sister's house all the time after school. I had a car, so I would just go there. No, 15. I'm jumping ahead, sorry. I do have notes to keep me on track because my brain, I don't know. I was 16 though, and I worked at Spencer's. It was my very first job, and Spencer's back then is nothing like Spencer's now. I would never work at Spencer's now. Ugh, I would not be able to handle that much clutter and people. It was very nice and neat and organized, and it was like a souvenir kind of shop back in the day. Nothing like what it is now. But that was my first job, was at Spencer's. And one day this guy walked in, and he looked very familiar, and I was like, I know that guy. But he looked so different, like his head was totally shaved, and like, it was weird. And then I was like, oh my gosh, it is the guy who's like been in the background, you know. But I never knew him as Sean. I always knew him as Freak. Like, what a freak, right? The neighborhood that these kids grew up in, I never lived in this specific neighborhood, but the neighborhood that my sister lived in and all their friends lived in, all the boys had like nicknames for each other, okay? Weird. Anyway, but his name was Freak, so I always knew him as Freak. And I saw him and I was like, is that Freak? In my head. And so he started talking to me. And I was like, do I know you? You know? And he's like, I don't know. Do you know me? Like, I think he thought that I was flirting with him or something. 100% no. I was like, I think I do know you. What's your name? And he was like, Sean. And I was like, because I didn't know. I had no idea if that was his real name or not. I only knew Freak. So, and we hadn't seen each other in like probably about 2 or 3 years. And he just looked different. I'll explain why he looked different in a minute. But I was like, I didn't want to say, is your name Freak, while I'm at work and get in trouble, right? But I was like, do you have another name? And he was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, do you have a nickname that people call you? And he was like, well, what do you think? Like, he was so weird. And I was like, okay, I don't mean to offend you, but is your name Freak? And he was like, yeah, it's Freak. I was just messing with you. And I'm like, ah, fucking asshole. Anyway, but I told my sister that I had seen Freak at my job or whatever, and she was like, oh my gosh, have you heard what happened to him or whatever? And I was like, no. And he had gotten into this car accident. I've heard the story a million times, but like now I'm kind of drawing a blank. But he got into this car accident, and a drunk driver hit him. And I think it was like in a company vehicle or something like that. I don't know. But this drunk driver, like 18-wheeler or something, hit him, and he actually died. He full on died, I think for like 8 minutes or something like that. They were able to bring him back to life, but his head was like crushed in, and he had to have a metal plate put in, which I guess is why his head was shaved, and it was like he was able to get back to whatever. But he wasn't able to walk or talk or eat or anything like that. So he had to relearn everything. And because of that, he got a settlement of like, I don't know, I think it was like $12 million, or it was a lot of money. But it was a settlement and set up in an annuity. So he's set up for life, right? So, yeah, she was like, oh my gosh, this happened, and blah, blah, blah. So now this guy doesn't have to work anymore. So he gets to hang out with his friends, like, all the time. I mean, it sucks how it happened, but gosh, nice, right? But because of it, he had to be on this special medication for like the rest of his life because he would have seizures for the rest of his life. So that part is not so nice. Anyway, so he started hanging around more, and I would go after school to my sister's house. And I remember one day he was there playing with my first brother-in-law dominoes. They would always play dominoes. I'm gonna have to go back and get more of these. Like, this is fantastic. Anyway, so I just went over to see my sister, and I saw him, and I was like, oh hey, and he was like, oh hey, because he had seen me at the mall, working. But that was about it. He kept like showing up, I guess because he didn't have any other obligations. He didn't have to work anymore and do anything, so he could just be there all the time. Because my first brother-in-law was his best friend. So he kept showing up, and I don't know, he was just weird. If you know Sean, he's weird. He's a weird guy. Once you get to know him, though, you just ignore it. You're just like, whatever, Sean. But my sister kept, like, this is so gross. But my sister kept saying, you should totally date Sean. Like, he's cute. I swear she said this. She was like, he kind of likes you. He thinks you're cute. I don't know, he's really cool and funny, and he's rich. And I'm like, I don't care about that. I was just like, no, because he was so not on my radar. He was like an old guy, to me. I mean, I'm 16. This guy's like 21 or something, 22. No, thank you. But my sister just kept pushing it, and I'm like, no. Every time I would go there, she would talk him up, like, you should go out and date with Sean. And I'm like, no, I shouldn't. No, thank you. That's weird. I don't want to do it. And she kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and I was like, oh my God, shut up. Fine. And she was like, cool. He needs to go to the store. You should take him to the store, and then I'll make sure he asks you out on a date. And I'm like, oh, please, no, I did not want to do this. I was like, please, God, no. But I was like, fine, I'll go on a date just to shut her up. And that'll be it. Then I'll say it wasn't a match, and that'll be the end of it. She will leave me alone. So I take him to the store because he wants to get an icy. That was like one of his favorite things, is like an icy. I don't know. Anyway, so on the way to the store, he asks me out on a date, and I said yes. And we were planning to go to the movies that weekend. I have no idea what movie we were planning to see. I guess maybe we would decide once we got there. I don't know. But we never went on the date. because Friday night, I think we were supposed to go on Saturday. Friday night, I got a phone call from my sister at like 2:30 in the morning. And I'm like, what the hell? Why is she calling me at 2:30 in the morning? So I answer the phone. I'm like, what? What's going on? And she was like, basically screaming in my ear, like, oh my god, oh my god. But like excitement. And I was like, what? And she was like, okay, so, you know how, she didn't say this, but Sean had got this settlement or whatever, and he had bought this property, and he was going to be building like this awesome dream house on the property. Well, he had taken her, she said this, he had taken her out to the property to go see the property where his house is going to be built. And then they had sex in his Durango. What? Okay, so everybody knows this story, so it's not like a big shocking news. If any of my family is watching this, everyone knows. They don't know that I was supposed to go on a date with Sean, but I was like secretly inside like, thank God, because I did not want to go on a date with him. So not. Ugh. So I was like, thank God. But then I was like, wait a fucking minute, you're married. Oh, it's starting to rain now. I'm like, you are married. What are you doing? Like, because in my world, like, I was a kid. Like, I didn't know people cheated on each other and stuff like that, you know? Nothing wrong with my sister, though. Her first husband was the worst. The absolute worst. He was a cheater himself. He was abusive. He was terrible. A terrible, terrible person. So, not saying he deserved it, but nobody's mad at her for doing that. You know what I mean? Anyway. So, but also, what if I was so excited to go on this date with Sean? How dare she? I could care less, but I'm just saying, like, what if I was, like, really excited about going on this date with this guy that she talked to me up about, you know? So, I found that out, and the whole date situation was never spoken of again. Thank goodness. Anyway, so, yeah. I mean, it all worked out because my sister married him. Thank goodness we didn't go on the date, right? Of course, I should have caught on because she was talking him up so much every time I went over there. It's because she was in love with him. I guess she just didn't realize. I don't know. Anyway, so, yeah. I remember when they got married, or when they were supposed to get married. I've made a story time talking about that as well, because that's actually the day that my brother died. So they didn't get married that day. But I do remember seeing Sean. I've never seen him so happy. I've never seen him more handsome, ever. Like, he looked so good in his suit. And he was just at my parents' house, like, getting ready at my parents' house, you know, because they were going to go to the courthouse. And my sister was at their house getting ready, and I came over to make sure that he was ready, you know. And I just remember looking at him in his tuxedo thing, or whatever it's called, and he looked really good. I'll never forget that. But anyway, so, yeah, he is an asshole. I mean, who does that? Who does that to their best friend, you know. But I guess when you love somebody and they're the one, there's nothing you can do about it, you know. But he was always, always there for me. You know, like, he was annoying, he was a jerk sometimes, but he was always there for me. He was. And there was one moment that I'll never forget that I just knew that he loved me and that we were a family. And again, it has to do with my sister pushing my buttons, forcing me to do things. Sean had a brother. It was a half brother. I had never met him before. And my sister was like, you gotta date him. You gotta go on a date with this guy. You'll love him. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. Especially Sean's brother. Like, ugh. You know, because I was expecting it to be someone like Sean. And I was just like, no. She's like, no, they're the exact opposite. You'll love them. And like one day, I was in my apartment and I heard a knock at the door. I opened the door and there's this random man at my door. And he's like, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, hi. And then I see my sister's, and Sean was her boyfriend at the time, car in the driveway. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I'm so-and-so. Your sister wanted me to ask you to go and see a movie with us. And I'm like, no, this is fucking weird. No. And I told him, I was like, nothing against you. I don't know you, but this is weird and awkward. And he was like, oh no, I know. But she's kind of forcing me to come up here, you know? And I was just like, ugh. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the whole thing with him. But she wore me down to get her to shut up. I was like, fine, I'll go on one date with him. I went on a date with him, and he was super great, and he was the exact opposite of Sean. But he's also something that I wasn't really looking for. Like, I like very tall, dark hair, that kind of thing. And this guy, super short. Like, he was 5'4". I'm not about that. Super short. He had blonde hair, blue eyes. I'm not attracted to that. No. But he was so nice and sweet, and the exact opposite of Sean. And I was like, okay, I'll go on a date with him again, you know. And then we ended up, you know, really dating. And I found out some stuff. Hold on. Sorry. I found out some stuff about him, and it was just, I don't know. I don't want to get into that thing. He was a really bad guy. Did really bad things. At first, when we got together, there was a reason why he was good and stuff like that. Then after a couple of months, the shit just hit the fan, and it just was real bad. Real bad. But he hurt me, not physically, but emotionally, and then he did some stuff to just real bad. And then I found out that he was cheating on me. I confronted him and the girl, but I was like heartbroken, you know, because that's never a good thing. Never, you know. But like, we had gone through so much stuff in such a short amount of time that it was just, it's good that it ended. But I was crushed, you know, and so I just left. And my sister and Sean came over to my apartment, and I was just crying, because that's a sad thing, you know. It's just very hurtful. And my sister was all like, fuck that guy, you know. But Sean, he like put his arm around me as I was crying, and he told me, he was like, you know, I love you, and you are such a good person. He doesn't deserve you, and you don't deserve someone like that. He's the worst, and his brother really was the worst. Like, He wasn't like that at the beginning. Just saying that. But he was terrible. He did a lot of terrible things, and Sean made me feel better. And he was just like, look, he's going to regret this for the rest of his life, but you deserve so much better. Fuck him. He's not my brother. You're my sister. And he chose me over him. And as far as I know, he never spoke to his brother again. Like, who does that? You know what I mean? Like, that was just... So, yeah. He was there for me. Because about a year later, a year after that happened, me and my husband started dating. And I introduced him to Sean at Target where we were working. And my husband already knew who Sean was because, first of all, everybody knows who Sean is. Everybody. But Sean was a very annoying customer that was driving my husband crazy one day in the gaming department of Target. And so when I introduced him, he was like, oh, crap. Because just the day before, or like the week before or something, he had been complaining to me about this super annoying customer who was such a jerk and like blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, great, this is your brother-in-law. Anyway, so he met my husband, my then boyfriend, you know. And when me and my husband first met, he has an older brother who, at the time, I can't see it now, but at the time, they're not twins, but they look like twins. Like, they're exactly the same, right? And when I first went over to my husband's house to meet his family, he opened the door and I was like, hi. And then out pops another boyfriend. And I'm like, wait, what? Because I thought the guy who answered the door was my boyfriend. And then when I saw my actual boyfriend standing behind him, I was like, you're a twin? What? And they all started laughing because they do that all the time to trick people. He's not a twin. They just look so much alike. But once you get to know people, you can see the difference. You know what I mean? So anyway, so my husband's brother was at Whataburger with his then fiance, his wife now, and they were having lunch. And Sean goes to Whataburger, and he walks in, and he sees my boyfriend on a date with another woman. So Sean, being this terrifying guy that he is, walks up to my boyfriend, his brother, and he's just staring at him and like kind of breathing and growling heavily. And my brother-in-law's like, hello? And he was like, hey, you want to introduce me? You know, and he's like, what are you talking about? Just like, who the hell are you? What's happening? And he's like, do you really think your other girlfriend would appreciate what you're doing here? And my sister-in-law, his girlfriend, was like, yeah, you want to tell me about this other girlfriend? Like, what the hell? You know? Sean didn't know that they were twins, you know, so he was coming to my defense, like, how dare you cheat on my sister, you know? So that was nice. And it's so funny because they still talk about it. They still talk about it now. Sean definitely puts an impact on people's lives, that's for sure. But he really is. He's such a good guy. He could be an asshole, but he's actually a really great person. Like, my sister had kids from previous relationships, and he, you know, took care of them. He raised him as his own, you know, and he let me live with him twice. Once when my husband went to the army, and once when we moved back while we were getting this house built. You know, he didn't have to do that. He definitely had the room. They had this massive house, you know. But he didn't have to do that. But he did. He let a whole family move into his, you know what I mean? Like, that's, and we were there for a year. A year. So, that's really nice. And, you know, him and my sister, they did separate. They separated, but he still took care of her. He still took care of her. He may not have been there all the time, but he still made sure that bills were paid and stuff like that. And when he died, they were still married because he refused to divorce her. He was like, no, you know, because I think that he really loved her, and he was just like, not gonna happen. But even though that he was separated, he's always been my brother-in-law. Like, I would see him almost every single day. You know, I didn't see my sister for like a year, but I would see him every single day because he would just be everywhere. You know, like, he's one of those. He kind of reminds me of Jay and Silent Bob. You know, those characters that stand in front of the gas station? He would be at the gas station in front of my neighborhood every day because he didn't have a job. He didn't have obligations, you know. He could just do whatever he wanted. And he would be there just to say hi to random people from the neighborhood and open the door for people. He was nice, you know, but he could talk. He could talk forever. So sometimes you'd be like, oh God, because I don't got time for this, you know. Like, I have literally told him, okay, Sean, you gotta shut up because I gotta get the kids to school. And I'd have to walk away because he would not stop talking. And for somebody who doesn't have a job or like obligations or anything, he can talk forever about nothing. And his, you know, oh, he would always be at Walmart too. He would always be at Walmart or the gas station just hanging out with people. I don't know. That's how everybody knows him, because he sees everybody all the time, you know. But anyway, so like I said, Sean was an asshole. But the good outweighs the bad. And he's like, I was telling my mom the other day, that's one of the first things that I said to her. I was like, what an asshole. He was such an asshole. And I was like, but he really wasn't. He really wasn't. He was like in the movies, there's always this super grumpy, grouchy man, old man, whatever, just jerk. But in the movie, you slowly learn by seeing different scenes that they're not really an asshole. They're not a jerk. They just want people to think that they're actually very sweet and kind and caring. But for some reason, they don't want the world to know that. So a lot of people only saw that he was an asshole and a jerk. But if you really knew him, you knew that wasn't true at all. That's just what he wanted people to think. You had to break through that asshole barrier. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed that asshole. Thank you for making me have feelings. Anyway, I really hope that you enjoyed that as well. I hope it wasn't too personal. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon.